Now, the debate doesn't end. Number one, if we do have 28 out of 40 Democrats in the Senate now, we are not all like-minded, and we don't all represent San Francisco like I do. So I have Republican senatorial colleagues from Riverside County, and from Kern County, and from Imperial County, and as the state gets bluer, that means there are more areas represented by Democrats, but these areas, of course, are relatively more moderate than we are here on the coast. That doesn't change. What changes is we tipped from Republican to Democratic representation. So number one, we're not monolithic. We don't all think the same. We don't all vote the same. Now, there's some understanding that when it comes to voting for the budget, or for something as important as revenue, that we need to stay on board. There will be a defector here or there, but hopefully we'll be able to keep the 2/3. Now again, I'm not suggesting we're about to go out and raise taxes. We just did raise taxes. That was Prop 30. But what else we do with this 2/3 vote threshold? Well, for one, we can, with a 2/3 majority vote, put constitutional amendments on the ballot. We've tried to do that with Republican support in the past, and we failed. And again, these 2/3 vote thresholds make no sense, as I've already described. Makes the minority party more powerful than the majority party. It's counterintuitive. But, so I think we will have a more functional legislature. We'll be able to do our job. And if you don't like the job that we're doing, guess what? Every 2 years, there's another legislative race. And going forward in non-gerrymandered districts in California, unlike the rest of the country, because we now have an independent citizens commission redrawing the lines, which they've just done, and in open primaries, which means supposedly, different from party primaries, Democrats won't have to run to the far left to win their nomination, Republicans won't have to run to their far right to win their nominations. Open primaries, non-gerrymandered districts, voters, you don't like what we're doing, change who's in power. That is the democratic process. And isn't it exciting? That's how it works. And we see in Congress almost every other session, the majority in the House of Representatives flipping from one to the other. We may not see that as often in the coming 2 or 4 years because of the gerrymandered districts throughout the country. And you may have seen a story or two in the paper that, in fact, where John Boehner has been beating his chest, we have a mandate, the country wants Republicans to run the House of Representatives, you'll do it our way, and he's moderated a little bit this past couple days. In fact, if you count up all the Democratic votes for members of the House of Representatives and compare them to all the Republican votes for members of the House of Representatives, there were more votes by over 1 million cast for Democrats than for Republicans. But because over 30 state legislatures are dominated by Republicans who have the authority to draw the congressional lines after the decennial census, they have gerrymandered red districts, and it's almost impossible for Democrats to win. So the game is rigged. But I would predict even those gerrymandered districts will become bluer over the course of this decade, again, because of demographic shifts. So that won't go on forever, but unfortunately we'll be stuck with this Republican control of the House of Representatives at least for the next few years. So we can place on the ballot constitutional amendments. I think that the greatest and most obvious example of why these 2/3 vote thresholds don't work and why it's a good thing that the majority party now has surpassed the threshold is the fact that after Governor Brown was elected in November 2010 and beat back Meg Whitman's $160 million, a strong, resounding victory for Jerry Brown. He said in his campaign he would only support taxes that are supported by voters. So in January of 11, he put forward his budget with a proposal that we would place on the ballot a tax measure similar to Prop 30, not exactly, but he needed a 2/3 vote of the legislature to put it on the ballot because it also had a constitutional amendment in it, which had to do with guaranteeing public safety funding relative to the realignment of our criminal justice system. So it needed a 2/3 vote. All Democrats were in support. That means we were too short in the Assembly and too short in the Senate. And though he negotiated with a handful of moderate Republicans for 6 months, none of them budged. Because they all wanted this or that or something else, do away with CEQA, do away with business regulation, things unrelated. They wouldn't give up their votes. So not only could the minority party veto what the majority party wanted, the minority party could veto what the majority party and the recently elected governor wanted. Again, just bad governance. So now, with more than a 2/3 majority in each house, we can put whatever constitutional amendment we want on the ballot on our own. And what that means in real terms is it can save upwards of $3–4 million in the cost of signature gathering, which is what the governor had to do to get Prop 30 onto the ballot. So I believe, with regard to equal marriage rights in California, that the Supreme Court will rule in our favor. And I can't tell you that they will rule that the 30 or so constitutional amendments that states have already passed prohibiting equal marriage rights will be overruled. I'm not suggesting that, though it's a possibility. But they could easily rule that Proposition 8 in California is unconstitutional, and we will then have equal marriage rights in California. Or if they were to just refuse it altogether to hear it, which we don't think is going to happen, then also the most recent appellate court decision would stand, and we would have equal marriage rights in California. But if, I'm just using this as an example, we didn't prevail in the courts, we, the Democratic supermajority, could now place an overturning of Prop 8 on the ballot.